So I wanted to go ahead and preface this a little bit with, just kind of like, of course, everybody at this point, it's been a little over a week since, I started recording this video. And I'm definitely at the point of I want in, let me in. This is probably going to be one of my favorite games ever made. So, I'm just saying these are just the kind of the worries. Just curious to see what other people's thoughts are, so leave those in the comments below. But these are definitely kind of my like biggest concerns. And also, one thing of advice, I don't think I'll put it in this video or have this in here, or I might put it in another video. But one of the things I did recently was watch Ziggy D's Ascendancy trial video. And the crazy thing with that, when I was seeing that, is I was like, ooh, Gimling Legionnaire, he moused over a node. I zoomed in, enhance. And I saw 1% increased fishing effectiveness, or something like that, whatever it was. It was fishing. And at that point, I was done looking at anything. And that was going to be a video of its own saying, don't look too much into it. Everything can change by the time it comes out. And if you look for any of the leaks, like a friend of mine's been looking at trying to figure out his build from the leaks with like Deadeye, and apparently he was saying Rain of Arrows has already been nerfed. So like anything you're trying to plan for, you kind of need to do it live. So that's just a little bit of advice. I think I covered that in the actual audio recording that I've already done. My main advice here, don't try to solve the game before it's out. I think a lot of people is definitely trying to do that. And, there have been some leaks, but I think this is probably going to be one of the best experiences from just going in blind and just having fun with it. So that's also more advice. Just have fun, make whatever, and just do it live. And also, again, I can't wait for this game. This is just kind of a worried video, just the concerns that I have. For me, this game's probably going to be a 10 out of 10. But these are, for anything, more so feedback, and they definitely need some feedback. So I do encourage anybody to try to give them as much feedback as possible, because if you have a concern or even a full-on complaint, letting them know is the only way to make it better. And also, some self-promo as well. I'm going to be streaming this, of course, on Twitch. I'm going to try to also be streaming it on YouTube if I can get that set up in time. And then there should be 2 more videos if they're not already out by the time this video goes out. Then cool. If they're already out, then cool as well. But I am going to go over the Ascendancies and stuff that they pretty much just came out with. And I'm also going to try to have my 2 builds that I'm going to league start with. The first one, of course, I'm going to try to take it as far as possible. And then what my second build that I'm planning on, unless there's something crazy that I come up with later. But just quick spoiler, it's going to be Infernalist and Chronomancer. But I'll explain more of that in the actual video. So that'll be that. Now, again, I'll be live on Twitch and maybe YouTube if I can get that set up. But anyway. Hey guys, how's it going? My name's EG Magnum, and this is going to be my video talking about what possible complaints, what problems we're going to run into, and just kind of concerns that I have personally going through the story, and then finally what could happen at the end game, and what we might hope that they change, or just what things that people are going to come in contact with that could be a problem for the actual pre-release on Friday. So I'm just going to go with beginning of the game to the end of the game, starting from like the story stuff and what goes on. And my biggest concern, I'll go ahead and say, is with the end game. And we'll get to that, and that'll probably be one of the biggest portions of the video. But my main concerns definitely are around there, especially personally, those are my main concerns. And then just from where I've talked with some friends, what could be, everybody's kind of being like, whoa, this is like Dark Souls POE, that's going to be the main thing with the story. That's the first thing I want to talk about is like the difficulty. Again, this is early access, so, if things are a little overtuned, probably going to get changed. So my first concern for just the player base is anybody coming in and just getting turned away by the game just being too hard, because everybody's getting the impression that this is harder Path of Exile. There is a thing, though. If you've played Elden Ring, it has a built-in difficulty slider, much like what I hope PoE is going to do with how they've described getting items and doing side areas to get extra power to then go beat that boss. So if you do hit a wall on any content, hopefully that is the pathway to it. Much like in something like Elden Ring, you go grind a little bit, you come back, and then you're stronger. Hopefully that's the thing. Hopefully there's a few more static ways to farm that, of course, people can make guides on, and how you could go for a route to guarantee power. And then, of course, for the racing community and stuff, hopefully you definitely, from what it sounds like, is being able to beat a boss under geared, which actually I'm really hyped for. So that is my first concern for the community. And then the actual bossing too could be a wall. This is pretty much what I just said, except for I actually think this is a good thing. But again, somebody hitting a wall, much like if you've looked at any podcast where any streamers have been at, like these things where the press has been at, where the press kind of just got up and walked away because they got stuck on a boss and they hit a boss wall, and there wasn't enough time for them to get further through it to then, where they could actually do their reviews and write their articles. So it was a waste of time for them to really hit their head against a wall, essentially. Now, again, this is a different setting, but that is definitely something to raise concern for anybody going in. If they hit a wall, do they know how to deal with that wall so that it's not a wall, or that you can overcome it? Hopefully there is tools to kind of show, in a sense, like maybe a side quest that is like, well, this is obviously a dead end, but there was some loot at it, and it was definitely something that upgraded my gear in some way. Other than just like there being, a dead area in current POE where you just never are going to ever do that side quest, and you just never want to go there. Now, of course, for the racing thing and people saying the optimal way, but hopefully there is something that kind of drives people to that, to show them that there is a way to increase your power to then go back to the wall and then overcome it. Now, the next thing, the cruel stuff and the ascendancy stuff is definitely a concern. So this is kind of the next little bit through the campaign. Getting the cruel difficulties could feel a little weird. The repeats, they definitely got rid of that when they did the 10 acts. That could feel bad for people. Again, this is just kind of a thing to get to the end game. If they are succeeding, this is pretty much going to be a test, and this is, where I think we can actually give them some feedback here. This is a test for then having to make multiple characters, because people have been asking about like a story skip or a faster way to level, stuff like that, and they definitely want people to just do the campaign again. This is definitely a test bed for then having the no campaign skip, where you go in, you do the campaign, you just go through it a second time. So this is like almost leveling two characters in one and seeing how that feels. Because then, when it releases, you have 6 acts, and then you got to go back through and do the 6 acts again on your second character. If it feels really good for Cruel, and especially by the time we've played this for like 6 months or something and they've been rebalancing things, if it still feels good to do 1 through 3, then that's a very good sign. And this is our chance to give them feedback to help acts 1 through 3, and then finally just doing the campaign multiple times feel really good. But again, this is a concern period that for people who definitely know life of the game, how is it going to feel 1,000 times done, and will it still feel fun and engaging to then do the same content over and over again? So we'll have to wait and see, but this is definitely a test bed for that with Cruel. That's my biggest concern there. And the ascendancies seems to be a permanent choice. We definitely got some word around that. And that could be a little weird as far as like, picking a thing that early. Hopefully they give us the ascendancies before, the actual release, and we can actually look at the nodes so we kind of have a more informed decision. I wouldn't mind if we didn't have that, if there was a respec thing, but since it seems like we can't respec, then I definitely want a way that, we can actually see all the ascendancies and kind of figure out what we want before we get to that point. But I feel as in a lot of cases, there is definitely going to be more or less informed players that aren't, completely tapped into the online, every announcement that's being said, and they're probably going to miss what ascendancy nodes are there. So hopefully they've put in some kind of system that isn't just the ascendancy, or they actually kind of state when you get there that it's essentially a permanent choice currently. But having a way to see the ascendancies when you're picking your class would be really good, and showing an example of what those ascendancies can do and how their stuff plays out. That would be really cool, and that would kind of give you a base idea for when you actually get there to choose. That is another concern, because I think that is a problem with PoE. Somebody comes in, they think they're picking a class, and really they need to be picking an ascendancy, and they don't even get that till lab. And sometimes they miss the trials or don't complete all the trials in their first playthrough. I've had friends skip that. So hopefully they do have something a little better for that, even just in the general sense when the game comes out, having some way that you can actually see the ascendancies themselves and actually kind of have a informed decision that this is a very important choice that you're making even when you're choosing your class. Now it looks like so far they're wanting to have things not pigeonholed as much, with like Gimling Legionnaire just kind of feeling generic, and they're not really being a solid minion class so far from what we can tell. So that's kind of interesting. Then that might be a little bit better, but at the same time, this is a lot of power and a lot of different abilities and different stats to kind of, calculate and figure out what you're going to do. So hopefully they actually have some more info there in the UI before you get there, or even while you're picking your class. Again, this is something we can give feedback for, but I think this is definitely a more genuine concern for newer players getting into the game, and this could be a problem because it's something that definitely already exists in PoE1. Now the big one, in-game. In-game, here we go. The big one that I have a biggest issue potentially with, and what could be my biggest fear for how the in-game feels. Again, this is just feedback because I don't want it to feel this way. If we get there, and I want to do bossing. I love bossing. I love the boss fights. They've definitely put an emphasis on that. I really want that. So when we get there, if the boss fights feel bad to grind for instance, the pinnacle bosses specifically, those realm gates or whatever, if it takes a little too long to get a chance at those, especially with the one portal thing and, dying to the fight and losing the map, hopefully they are dropping enough. That is going to be my biggest concern. And again, we'll have to wait and see for certain things like this, but that is a genuine concern. This is going to be my biggest complaint. If it feels bad to grind, if I'm taking hours and hours and hours to grind out one attempt to do, say, the breach boss, and then finally I find the pinnacle boss thing, or however you unlock that, and I can go in and I fight the pinnacle boss and I get one shot, and that was my one attempt, and it's going to take me another week to get there, that would really suck. Now, is it hopefully not going to take that? I hope it doesn't. But if it is going to take some amount of time like that, that is definitely a problem that we could run into, and something that I'm not a fan of. The other thing would be even just the individual league pinnacle bosses, or whatever they're called, the final boss of the league mechanics. Those, if that also feels bad to farm, and that feels bad to get into, dying once, one of my biggest complaints for a long time was trying to learn like Uber Elder, Shaper, then we have all the other Ubers now. Actually getting attempts to get in feels really bad when you're learning the fights. Once you know the fight, then it doesn't feel as bad when a new league comes out and you want to buy attempts, or you get your attempts and then you use them because you finally learned it. A lot of times for a lot of players, especially more on the casual side, or I guess hardcore casual, if you want to call it that, for people who definitely can do the mechanics and definitely can get there, however you want to frame it. The point is, though, for people that don't have as much time, until they're ready to like buy 20 divine worth of, you know, whatever, or their character can just literally one-shot some of the stuff, especially when they're new and they're balanced around that time frame, when they're actually really hard, then that's when, you know, people have the hardest time to practice. And having one attempt every now and then, you know, I really kind of wonder if they could do a thing, since they have 6 portals, you actually reset the fights much like the campaign, and then you actually have some sort of, 6 attempts where it resets the fight and you could go in. Now, the problem with that, I would say, is they probably would nerf the loot somehow, which that would definitely feel really bad for most people. So I don't know if there's some kind of compromise there, but having only one attempt to learn the fight and then go farm again, unless those are really common fights that you can farm to really quickly, like you farm it up once an hour, so then you spend like a day farming and then a day practicing, that's going to feel pretty bad overall for the most part. And at that point, it's almost like I'm going to join a rota to practice the bosses or something. Like, I don't know. Like, that's just really my biggest concern, is how long is it going to take to farm up these boss fights, and how long is it going to take to farm up the pinnacle boss. Now, of course, getting there the first time, they said it's going to take a while. That's fair enough. That's to be expected. But once we have essentially the game on farm status, if that takes too long for the people who are catching up and trying to learn the fights, that means they got to watch videos and try to figure out what's going on through all of this external content, because they don't want to attempt it fully blind. And I think that is a very missed opportunity. They need to have a way so that you can feel good for going in blind and trying to figure out the fight, because these boss fights look like they're going to be amazing, and I can't wait for it. And I think that is definitely a chance for a huge missed opportunity if they don't do it right. And I think not giving access enough, like if they are actually as hard as they say they are, being able to practice those is going to be amazing. Now, there is 4 difficulties, I think, is what they said. So with the different difficulties, you can definitely do the easier one, hopefully better. But in general, if the fight's already hard to begin with, then, you know, that might be out of some people's reach to even just do the difficulty 1 version. And then building up to 4 is going to be just a chore in the first place. And I do think that is going to be the case in a lot of times with a lot of these bosses, probably, is that even level 1 is going to be pretty difficult. And that's what I want. I want the level 1 to at least be difficult. But if you can't practice it enough with enough attempts, that just feels bad across the player base in general. Much less hardcore people won't go in until they actually know how to do the fight in a lot of cases, and they can 150% complete the fight. And I think if softcore being pseudo-hardcore in that sense, that's going to be the thing. People are just going to sell it to people who definitely know the fights, and unless people can 150% complete these, unless you're really doing it for content, you're probably not going to be just trying it and doing it. And I think that's going to be a failure if that happens. Hopefully, though, again, this is early access. This is our chance to give feedback. This is our chance for stuff like this. So that's really what I'm doing here. And, like, yeah, that's my main concerns. I can't wait till the 6 comes. I can't wait to get in. Let me know any of your concerns in the comments below, and let me know anything that you think about any of these as well. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Again, let me know any and all thoughts in the comments down below. I am really curious to see everybody's opinions. And, yeah, videos coming. I definitely want to try to figure out what I'm going to be doing. Hopefully have some videos out on that soon. Hopefully we get some more information. I can do some other content right before the release happens, maybe on the Ascendancies or something. Again, if they actually release that information, I'll probably do a video going over those and kind of giving my thoughts. And then, I'll probably do a video going over what I'm probably going to league start, or at least an idea of a few builds. I definitely want to do like 6 things right now. So, yeah, and that's not exactly all the classes. But, yeah, anyway. Like, comment, subscribe, usual stuff. I'll be live on Twitch when this comes out. So usual stuff in the description: Twitch, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, TikTok, stuff like that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Peace.
Hey guys, so by the way, if I sound different, I just got a new mic at the time of recording this. And yeah, so instead of this thing now, it's coming out of that thing. So yeah, woohoo, hopefully I sound better. If you think I do sound better, let me know in the comments. So I wanted to go ahead and actually get another perspective for what is, kind of the topic of this video, essentially. And I pretty much ask essentially the 3 questions-ish, roughly, the concerns for that I've kind of presented from the campaign. I don't think I mentioned the ascendancy stuff, but anyway, as far as it goes, just leveling and then the end game and how much of a grind it could be, and the big concerns there. And also, I guess spoilers. One thing that was kind of interesting was mentioned the actual portals that I just previously was talking about. If maybe instead of them nerfing the loot, what if each time you use a portal, you get a penalty to your rewards? I don't know how they would show that, but that would actually be a cool compromise. That way you get to practice the fight 6 times, and then you just get a little bit less loot. I think that is an amazing idea, and that is definitely the first feedback that I think I'm going to try to send in. Yeah, that's brilliant. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the little combo between me and Mag, good friend of mine. So yeah, here goes.
Okay, so I got my friend here, Mag, who has a different opinion than I do about games, or just different ways of playing games. And I kind of wanted to get his opinion on POE2, especially with the kind of recent thing. I know people have been talking about the hardcore pausing thing, but just more on a softcore side of things. Obviously not looking at any kind of speculation, of how often things drop or whatever. But Mag, how do you feel about like the whole one death for like the like doing the breach pinnacle boss thing? Like as far as you go in one portal, that's all you got.
I mean, it's gonna be based on what the boss fight is like mechanically. Are you learning the skills that you need to beat this boss in one portal in a reasonable way, or are you going in and you're getting one shot by a mechanic because it was red instead of blue? If you're gonna be killed by stupid things like that, if the boss fight is dumb and there's no progression to learn that fight that is prepping you for that, and it's just you're walking in and one thing is good and one thing is bad and you pick wrong and you're dead. It's ridiculous. It's just not a good, it's not a good way to do it. Like, I do not want to watch videos ahead of time to figure out how to play the game at any given time just so that I can play, and to be punished that severely for um a mechanic that you really have no way of knowing how it works. It's just super frustrating, and honestly, if there's enough of it, I'm just gonna walk. I don't need to be playing that. I'm not looking for some super hardcore experience. I'm looking to have fun, chill after work, and yeah, if I'm just gonna go in and beat my face off the wall and then get killed and then, oh, you're done. Nah, man, I'm out. I'm out.
And yeah, I think too, again, obviously this is kind of speculating, but hopefully if it is closer to that, you get more practice runs by just having more frequency of drops for them. I mean, obviously we'll have to wait and see, but that kind of brings me to the second thing though, is um, you know, some things that people have pointed out would in recent like podcasts and stuff is maybe giving just more than that one portal, especially around the softcore kind of topic. So, how would you feel like much with the campaign, um, you essentially get to reset and do 6 attempts with the portal, and again, that's uh, honestly, I think this would be better than even like the current PoE1 system, because then you actually get to practice, because it fully resets. And there's obviously some situations with some bosses in PoE1 where it's just too overwhelming, and you're even though you have 6 portals, you were done on your second portal. That it was already done. So like and then also with that same thing, what are your thoughts on the campaign bosses being more Elden Ring-ish style, where you die and then you just get to, throw your body at it in the sense of resetting it and learning the fight, rather than currently PoE where you throw your body at it to win.
So it again, it's going to depend on what they do, and if you have a situation where the um your character is going to be able to go through the campaign and not have to go to the trade website, and they're going to be able to fight, and they're going to do enough damage, and they're going to have enough survivability to fight the boss. If you've done a reasonable amount of things, but again, not having to rely on trade or grinding for 3 levels above the fight that you're about to do, just so that you're over leveling it to the point where it's basically trivialized. um I don't mind the idea of the fight resetting. Like, I don't dislike the idea that you start fresh. It's a re-go each time. But I've played characters in PoE1 that they weren't there when I hit the boss, and it was basically you had to gear check, and if you didn't go, on the trade website, or you didn't luck into RNG, you got smashed. Or if you were just playing a build that didn't really come together until more into the late game, um, there are absolutely bosses that I got through PoE1 with, where it was just throw my face at it until it dies. And thankfully they put in the mechanic where you start outside of the boss room, rather than having to run your whole way back again. Um, but yeah, it's just, if the boss fights make sense and they are reasonable, and you can, reset outside while you learn it. I mean, I'm not great at games, but I beat Melania because I just tried again and again and again. It took me probably my first character, probably easily 50 to 100 tries, like a lot of tries. Um, but it was a fight that you could learn the mechanics, and the things like that, and it made sense. And then it was just a case of getting my hand to do the right button pushes, or whatever else. But so yeah, it's just going to be if the progression for the characters is good, where you don't feel like you have to have perfect resists, you don't have to have your character entirely together, or just no matter which character you pick, it kind of comes together when you need it to. I don't think that's unreasonable to restart from scratch. And like, your point about the resetting makes sense, because you've got um, fights like Shaper, where if you just have a low damage build, you just end up at a point where, or a low damage, and your survivability is not great either. You can't just go and step on the little areas around that he put on the ground. You would just end up in a position where there was dots everywhere, and if you step anywhere, you're dead. So I do like the idea that it would reset, in the sense that it's designed to be beat in one portal. Um, I just hope that they like I said, they have good boss fights, and it makes sense, and your character would be strong enough to pull it off.
And then also too, with the resetting as well, like again, it's more attempts. The worry I've had is, that if they do that, they might just nerf, drop rates or something like that, because they might try to balance how many attempts you get, as far as like the frequency that you get to enter, with, kind of drop rates. I think you were talking
So
about,
in
yeah.
PoE1, I always said we should either have, if you take the Uber Pinnacle boss drop rates as divines, that we should have a chaos version. It drops that much more frequently, with no loot. You get nothing. All that you're getting is time in the fight and experience. Um, and you would basically just pay that much lower cost, but all you're getting to do is to go in and learn the fight. Because what's turned me off, for like, I didn't even touch pinnacle bosses in Settlers, is you pay, 150, and I don't earn a lot of currency. I'm not one of these people that, has all the new tricks and knows all the little crafting things and stuff like that. I've been playing this game forever. I don't watch videos. I don't know this stuff. It takes me a long time to get currency. And so when I'm going to go in and I'm going to spend, like 3 hours worth of currency on one fight, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to get obliterated. Nah, man, I'm selling those things from then on, like every single time. So like if they had, okay, you've got 6 attempts. We're concerned about drop rate. Okay, fine. Give me 50% of my drop rates if I do it in 3 portals. My loot pool is 50% of what I would have gotten if I had done it in 1 portal. I use all 6, cool. I get nothing, but I get to have learned the fight. And so, you're giving me more opportunities to figure out the mechanics, to pay attention to the Maven memory game, which I am terrible at. There's so many things in POE1 that if I didn't have the luxury, even on like crazy overtuned characters, if I didn't have the luxury of a death or two, I would never have managed it. So, I mean, for me, I would, like I said, if I get an experience that is designed around, the we want to be hardcore even though we're not playing hardcore. We want like a hardcore softcore version. I'm out, man. I'm not here for that. I'll find a different game to play. I just want to play a game where I can be somewhat good at it and have somewhat decent results. I'm not looking to be the guy who's running around in the Mage Blood every, the first week. I just want to be able to try the cool new stuff and not have it take me 6 hours and then I get in the room and I'm there for 3 seconds and I'm dead and then just progressively more and more punishing. So, I mean, I appreciate they can't make the game for everybody, and I feel like GGG is definitely more pushing towards we want where we want elite players and we all that stuff. No, man, if that's what you're looking for, like I said, I'll find a different game.
Cool. And also too I didn't think really myself of the lowering the reward per portal kind of thing, but that would actually be a really cool way that they could balance it without just hitting the drop rate or the frequency that you can get it, while at the same time because that's honestly one of my concerns that's going to be in this video is just how fast can I get to these bosses once I get there, like how many hours do I have to farm so that I can fight the breach boss 10
That's
times,
it.
and that's
Like
that's what I'm afraid of.
I remember the first time that I fought Shaper with you back when he was the top tier, we farmed forever to get those pieces. And then I had a knock at the door and I had to leave my computer and well, there's a portal down and some extra time and more things that he could put on the ground. And it really negatively affected my ability to win that fight. And after that, I was like, I'm not gonna take all that time to go farming again to go and do this again. It's just not worth the time to me. So yeah, if I'm basically having to put, 25 hours into farming something to lose it in 6 minutes, like I'm gonna set like in Settlers, I sold every single Uber Pinnacle boss, whatever you want to call it, every single one I've gotten. My build can do T17 maps relatively decently. I've gotten a couple of the fragments, and I just sell them. I want nothing to do with that at all. It's literally throwing away money.
And then I did have another question too, but I mean you essentially answered it right there as far as just selling it. Like I'm curious to see how many people just start selling their attempts because of depending on how they have it set up for how much time and everything. But hopefully they come up with some kind of, obviously it's early access. They're going to make a lot of changes. I'm
Yep.
definitely going to be submitting that feedback though of the, give us all 6 portals, lower the loot per attempt. I think that's a very good compromise. But yeah, like that.
And I mean I can't speak for anybody, but I would do it because I'm fine if I don't get the loot as long as I'm getting the experience. And if I finally get to the point where I'm like, okay, like Azaro. The first time, back in the day when I was fighting Azaro, I got smoked over and over and over again. And then I was like, oh, okay, so that's how that works. That's how that works. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, yeah, man, I'm like 8 levels under the where I'm supposed to be right now to fight Azaro, and this is fine. Like I have enough damage that it's gonna take me about forever to kill him, but I'm gonna survive all his junk until I do. And now that's fine. And so like if I can get the time in against the fights to learn the fights without it being a punishing amount of time to save up to do the fight in the first place, I will take that. I will take the experience in place of the loot.
Yeah, just getting the reps in, I think, is probably the most important thing. So yeah, that's definitely going to be the feedback that personally I send, and I'm hoping they're getting a lot of because I do want that change. But anyway, that's going to be it for this. Thank you for answering these questions, and
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, have a good one, dude.
All right.
Peace.
Take care. Bye.
So there it is, another perspective. Let me know in the comments below where you stand on any of these topics that we talked about. And also, just a note too, the pausing thing, you can actually pause on boss fights now, which that actually solves one of his problems. So that is actually in the game now, which is really cool. So if you have to get up, you just pause it, boom, go do whatever, come back, and then you're back in the fight where you were. No big deal. Even if you're in a group, there is a way that you can pause it in a group, which is really cool. Other than that, though, the hardcore controversy, pretty much the pause core thing, which might be what people start calling it. I do have my thoughts on that, but this video is long enough already. So yeah, just come by. Hopefully, I'll be also live on YouTube as well. But come by Twitch or YouTube and just ask me if you really want to know my opinion on the pause core or hardcore thing. But for the most part, I'm going to be focusing on softcore, so I probably won't even do a video talking about that. Other than that, though, if I do hardcore, it's probably going to be racing. If they start doing stuff for that or any kind of competition, I definitely am interested in maybe getting into that and start practicing a lot. So that sounds a lot of fun, especially since we're in POE2 and it's a new game. Other than that, though, like I said, I'll be live on Twitch and YouTube, maybe YouTube, but definitely Twitch for sure. And as far as my classes, I don't know if I said this on an earlier video before the one I recorded before the new mic. But I am going to be going Infernalist, and then probably my second build is Chronomancer. I definitely want to do 5 to 6 builds for sure. But my first two are going to be those. I won't go into much detail, but as far as the Infernalist goes, I do have a little bit of hopium that a mechanic from POE1 has changed. And if it has, that's awesome, and I get to do my build. If not, I'll figure out something.